Every once in a while, something happens in your life, some major event that makes you rethink your priorities, that makes you stop and think, am I spending my time in the ways that really make sense for me? And something like that happened to me recently. And so I'm going to share a really personal story with you here today. And I hope you'll stay along for the ride. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. One of the top deathbed regrets is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. No one, and I mean no one, looks back from that vantage point and says, I wish I'd spent more time working. Unfortunately, the specter of death has loomed pretty large in my life in the past few years, but more acutely recently. A few weeks ago, I lost my dad to brain cancer. So today we're going to take a little departure from our regularly scheduled content, and I hope you'll come along with me for the ride. And if this isn't your thing, well, that's okay too. You can skip this one. I'll be back next week with more of what you're used to. But today, I want to tell you about someone I wish I'd spent even more time with, my dad, because the loss of him is the only thing on my mind right now. And sharing him with you is a gift that I can give to you and to me. Because my dad was a guy who put his time where his mouth is. He spent time doing things that were important and meaningful and that he enjoyed, even if others may have found him or his deep interests a little strange at times. So here we go. Now, my dad was a lot of things, but most of all, he was a constant presence in my life. From some of my earliest memories of being zipped inside his coat to keep warm on a summer beach vacations in Oregon, where no one really goes in the water because it is so damn cold, to the fact that up until he couldn't, he played chess on Sundays with my youngest, virtually on chess.com because we didn't live close, while talking on Google Meet. Yes, even somebody in their late 70s can use technology. And he played Go with my oldest whenever their schedules aligned. My dad wasn't super effusive with his language around love, but the fact that he loved me deeply was never in question. It's my dad who read to me every night when I was a kid, aloud with funny voices. It was my dad who stayed up all night with me when I was sick, when I was little, reading to me again out loud on the bathroom floor when I was puking so much I needed to be close to a toilet at all times. It was my dad who took me along on Saturday errands. Surely, in retrospect, to give my mom a little bit of breathing room, but you know what? It was fun. We'd go grocery shopping, he'd buy me treats, we'd stop at a CD store, that's how old I am, called Silver Platters, and he'd get me set up listening to music while he perused the stacks for himself. We'd go to Crossroads. It was a local strip mall, and we'd get lunch. He introduced me to dosas there. After spending, who knows how long at a bookstore called Half Price Books, where he'd always let me get whatever I wanted because reading was his special interest. It was my dad who made sure that his daughters, and he had only daughters, would be self-sufficient. Every Christmas as a teenager, I received tools. I have 5 types of saws now, most of which I have never used, but you'd better believe that I am prepared for anything. He taught me how to sharpen my knives, good knives that he bought me, at a perfect 15-degree angle on a whetstone. And even though he taught me how to do this when I was a teenager, it's only now in my 40s that I'm going to have to start doing this task for myself because he did it for me every time he visited. He taught me how to change the oil on my 1982 Toyota Corolla. Actually, it was a Toyota Tercel, and then changed the spark plugs when they started to go and my car started rattling around and I was scared. He told me what to do and showed me how to do it. It was my dad who met me at a random gas station one night when I was 16, having gotten turned around while driving home from a babysitting gig in the impenetrable fog in the time well before cell phones. It was my dad who chaperoned my 16th birthday party on Camano Island at a friend's house full of teenagers doing God knows what. Just kidding. I know exactly what we were doing, and my dad probably didn't want to know, but he was there just to make sure that we were safe and he wasn't interfering at all. It was my dad who dropped me off in New York City for college, walking around Washington Square Park with me and buying me a small painting that I still have in my house today. It was my dad who sent me manila envelopes of articles that he'd cut out of the various newspapers and magazines that he reads with handwritten notes about why he thought I'd like these particular articles until the internet became his primary source of information, after which I got many, and I mean like upwards of 10 a week emails from him forwarding stuff he thought I'd like. I will say, I did in the end need to batch process those emails. The internet made it a little too easy for him to share. I think perhaps I preferred the old days, but I'm digressing here. It was my dad who drove me to Portland after I left New York at 23, and he got us a hotel and took me out to dinner while I was interviewing for jobs for which I would receive offers and yet decide not to take, based only on a gut feeling. And he never gave me crap about these decisions. And when I didn't end up moving to Portland, but to San Francisco instead, it was my dad who rented a U-Haul and drove me 15 hours to San Francisco to move me in on Father's Day, no less. And when I was lonely in San Francisco in my early 20s, those first few weeks before I had friends, before I met my husband, before I had a real job, it was my dad I wanted to talk to, just to shoot the shit. And now I'm well into my 40s, but it's my dad who I always called when I had a question about, well, almost anything. How to fix a running toilet, how to prune one of the fig trees that he planted in my yard, which, incidentally, he brought to me on a plane in a suitcase. It was him I needed to ask when I wanted to troubleshoot a stove that was going on the fritz or figure out anything kind of technical or, something that was going on that I needed some help with. Now, was our relationship without friction? No, of course not. He could be infuriating, really infuriating. I remember once he was explaining something to me that I was never going to use or remember. And I said, look, I'm happy to listen to you tell me this, but I want you to know that I'm not going to remember. I'm just going to Google it or I'm going to hire someone should this ever come up again. Do you still want to tell me? And of course he did. So I listened. It's hard to be mad at someone who's being so goddamn helpful all the time, right? But so far, I've only told you about how he related to me. And of course, he was so much more than that. He was excellent at everything he did. And that was because, at least in part, he made time for his own interests. He followed his own interests. He was a skilled craftsman and woodworker. He was a prolific gardener. He was a handyman extraordinaire. He could fix literally anything. And he had a rare, very rare skill of being incredibly patient with every customer service agent he ever spoke to. He was a voracious reader, and he instilled a love of reading and books in all of us. And as a person who reads, on average, maybe 50 to 75 books a year, I'm often reading several at once, and that's all my dad's influence. He had impeccable taste, and he was a thoughtful gift giver. He instilled in me a love of the Beatles, of Bob Marley, of Don McLean's American Pie. And to the end, he maintained a perfectly organized collection of thousands of CDs. And, he was just a music lover with wide-ranging tastes, from the Gregorian chants to the Eurythmics, from Dylan to Enya, from Tracy Chapman to the Stones. Like, he had it all and he listened to it all. And not only was he obsessive about music and books, but many, many subjects in succession. So, first, it was bamboo. He's an expert. And then figs. He has a virtual fig orchard, or he did. And then rugs. At least these were the interests that occurred during my lifetime. But you better believe that when he got on a subject, he was going to learn all there was to learn about it. And by proximity, you were going to learn more than you ever wanted to know about that subject as well. He was generous with his time, even if he wanted things to be on his own schedule. His diagnosis about a year ago of terminal brain cancer was a blow to all of us, but most of all to him, because he had so many projects, he wasn't ready to stop living. In fact, we used to joke that, how he would die is in his late 90s, falling off the ladder or the roof because he was literally never going to hire someone to clean the gutters. He was going to do it himself until the end. As it is, we got him for a whole lot less time than we expected. And as cliche as it is, I really am not sure what I'm going to do without him. I feel lucky that he was my dad and for the time that we got with him. And in the last year of his life, I got to test my own ideals about time by making sure that I visited as often as I could, even when it was difficult, even when there was so much going on with my own family, and that I called him more often than that. And for a guy who never ever wanted to talk about death, I was so impressed with his optimism, his almost Zen-like acceptance in the face of this disease. He also taught me how to swear. That was not on purpose, but through osmosis. Just want to share what kind of a guy he was. Um, and I've been lucky in my life to suffer relatively little loss. And I know that no one likes to think or talk about death, just like my dad didn't. But it's actually really important to do so because being reminded of the fact that your time is limited for you, for me, for everyone is one way that you can make better decisions about how you want to use your time in the future. I don't know about you, but I aim to live a life of few regrets. And rather than feeling morbid, thinking about my dad's death, my eventual death, etc., thinking about it allows me to make the choices that feel hard in the moment, but that will reduce those regrets in the long run. So, what does this mean? It means answer that phone call, even if you've got a to do list a mile long. It means invite a friend you haven't seen in way too long to lunch or to coffee. It means start up that hobby that you've been interested in taking up for years but haven't felt like you've had the time for. Live a full life because no one knows what tomorrow brings. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with somebody who could use a little less stress in their life. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're excited to take action or you need a little extra support, check out the free resources available on my website or schedule a free consultation call with me. You can do both of these at alexishasselberger.com. See you next time.